Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back, or welcome if you've never been here before, and welcome to my first weekly wrap-up of 2023. I am very excited about this because one thing that I learned from last year is that I really prefer to fill you in on the books that I'm reading as I'm going along. If I have to think 10 books back, it becomes a bit of an arduous task and it's no longer delightful for me. So we're gonna start this year out right. I have so far read 2 books. I'm gonna tell you about them and I will intermittently pop in as I finish books. I think if I do that, cut it all together, I should be able to keep up with it. So the first book that I read this year was Ache by Marley Valentine. I was very excited to get into this because I did meet her at Love in Las Vegas and she signed this copy. She actually convinced me to pick up her books, being that I normally, or I would say, towards the beginning part of last year, I only bought books that were 5 stars. In fact, I didn't even have books on my wish list that I hadn't read yet. So she convinced me. Okay, she said, don't you have books that you haven't read yet on your shelves? And I agreed. So I'm so happy that I picked up her books. The buns also belong to her. These are the buns. Anyway, back to Jordan and Gael. They are lifelong friends, and Jordan has been secretly pining. In fact, he's in love with Gael, and this opens with his attempt to spend time with him before Gael gets married. What he doesn't know is despite the fact that Gael is in love with his fiance, the pining is mutual. And this captured that frenzy of longing and sort of elation and awe of the moment within the steam between them. And it also had a very unexpected amnesia trope that forces them to work their way back to each other. It also highlights all of the time lost and cherished between them. There is a warning for cheating, being that Gael is getting married at the beginning of this book. This is the first book that I've read with cheating where the third party has a POV. She is very aware of their connection, and I thought that that was a nice additive. But I ultimately rated this 4 stars. I love the way that Marley Valentine honors trauma in her books. She has a beautiful way of taking her characters through it while also administering that message of hope. And this was just a great way to start out the year. I loved it. Next, an all-time favorite book now that I've read it, Restore Me by J.L Seegars. I'd like to thank Jess from Peace Love Books for sending me this beautiful freaking copy. It's stunning. And so are my nails. So we'll just try to give you a close-up because we know I'm a woman who loves lighting. And sometimes things get blown out, but I feel like it's a good compromise. Anyway, oh my God, I did feel personally attacked by the scalpel of prose in this book. This is beautifully written, okay? The way that she can use a turn of phrase to draft you into the moment, it was just compelling. This is an enemies to lovers, falling in love with my late husband's best friend. And the depth and weight of their loss, their shared loss, was immensely felt in this. The epic love story that Sloane has with Eric, her late husband, really is Dominic's martyrdom in this book, being that he met her first in college. They had this sort of whirlwind moment of kismet that for romance reasons she doesn't remember. And when Dominic's best friend Eric falls for her, he sort of takes on the mantle of swallowing the moment that forever changed his life and allows the woman that he loves and his best friend have their love story. And so in order to sort of hide and mask his feelings, he's been pushing her away. They've been needling each other. I love the banter in this book as well. I love the verbal volley because in order to needle someone in that way, you have to know them. And so I just love that about their relationship. We meet Sloane 4 years after she's lost Eric, and now she's in a position where she's rethinking her vow to never entertain love again. And she's honoring the fact that she's touch-starved and in need of a bit of passion. This is all coming at the same time where she's being forced into proximity with Dominic at work. She's an interior designer. He's a contractor that gets put on the project, and he's the last person that she wants to deal with because he's been pushing her away for years. And yet there is a moment that sort of shifts their relationship, a moment where he defends her honor. And when he hears that she's moving on, that she's going to try to start dating, he offers himself up for her pleasure, which spirals into an arrangement between them that's supposed to be temporary, 8 weeks. And from there, I just got compelling, vulnerable steam, them confronting their childhood trauma, all of the reveals on how devoted Dominic has been to Sloane over the course of his just tour of sacrifice and pining. It is just so freaking epic and beautiful. Even their professions come into play. This was just masterful. I absolutely loved it. I loved how every single moment in this book just feels like it is heightened. It's heightened with his longing and his awareness. It is just so freaking beautiful. Even the third act was comical in, he's just so patient with her. Anyway, I loved this book. It is 5 stars and it is a favorite book, period. And I'm so glad that I read it. Again, thank you, Jets. I loved this so much. And I will be back when I've read more. I'm hoping that this form works. I will make sure to place timestamps below so that you can jump around just in case you're interested in particular books over others. I'll see you soon. I'm back with a couple more reads for you, as well as soaking up my light bulbs. It's time to take them down. But before I do, I wanted to update you on Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I was looking forward to this. This is her debut into YA, and I have to say it still had her brand of hilarity that's very vulnerable, relatable. Our hero and heroine, Celine and Bradley, are in high school. And they once were friends, but of course, separated, fell out. And this was misleadingly supposed to be about them going into this wilderness program, which they do. But the time spent there is intermittent with them going back and forth between that program, which is the scholarship program, and high school. And I actually kind of loved it because we start out with, you know, it's the first day of school again. Bradley is a footballer. There's a big joke about like not calling it soccer. So I loved that. And Celine is a very popular like social media influencer that shares her conspiracy theories online. And I just loved her because she's larger than life. She's boisterous. She has big dreams of becoming a lawyer so that she can really financially provide for her mom, who is single and withstood her father leaving and taking care of her and her sister. And she is kind of like in your face with her opinions, and she's confident, and that makes it really difficult for her to make friends. So when they started high school, Bradley was curious and wanted to make new friends and wanted to try out for the football team. And they each have their own tale of how it happened, but again, they grew apart. And I think their resentments against each other really come to head when they're falling for each other during the scholarship program. I liked their backstories. Celine has a lot of trauma, and the reasons for why she wants to be who she is centered around her father leaving. We have Bradley, who has OCD. He also has this secret love of writing, and he wants to, I don't know, almost like atone for the changes that his family's had to make because of his mental health. And so this is all centered around a time where they're in high school. Big decisions are being made. You could not pay me to go back. And just the stakes are high on what their future is going to look like. And so when they're thrust into this program together in order to sort of claim this scholarship that will basically be doled out to the highest score given based on their critical skills, their interpersonal communication skills, and how they work well with others, they're thrust together in these sort of active problem solving gauntlet. And this is really a story about them getting to know each other again and realizing how similar they are, how they've changed. And I really like the fact that the romance comes into play a lot sooner than I was anticipating. Of course, I wanted a little bit more steam, but this was YA and the emotional work was done. So I'm giving this 4 stars. I mean, it's sweet and swoony and it's hard hitting, and I think the rep was great. As far as the OCD, I can't personally speak for that, but it's a job well done. Like it's Talia Hibbert, okay? And it had all of those markers. It had all of those markers, and I had a good time with it. Next, during reading sprints, I picked up Undertow by Sam Mariano, which I have to say, she did a really good job of bringing that sort of bully element into an adult landscape, being that Gemma, our heroine, is a single mother. She's in an affluent neighborhood where she got the land and her home at a bit of a discount. And the neighbors in this suburb have been bullying her, have been trying to run her out. And she's finally had her last straw when one of her neighbors sort of gets physical with her in front of her daughter. And so she seeks out an attorney who just so happens to be Dare from Even If It Hurts attorney. And Hayden, out of all of the Sam Mariano heroes, I really feel like he's our gentleman, okay? I love that there is no miscommunication when it comes to freaking Hayden. He is frank, he's forward, he's quick to pull the trigger, especially when it comes to his interest in Gemma. And I love how it isn't dubious. You know, there isn't any coercion. He's just very persistent and he sets the scene just so very well. And I also loved that, like, within 3.5 seconds of their date, he's already defending her honor, okay, against her neighbors. And I also love the way that he sees her daughter in this, the fact that she's a good mother, okay, the Sam Mariano book, and how he can see Parker's intelligence, admires the fact that she won't let him get one over on her after a situation with his son. This is in preparation for the next book in the Coastal Elite series. I'm highly anticipating that. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Parker because she's smart. She's giving me Zoe vibes. She's curious and I don't know. I'm not going to say anything else because it was short, but I actually really loved this novella. I want to rate it a 4.5. I probably should just bump it up. It's Sam Mariano. I absolutely love this. I loved Hayden. It's a 5 stars. It's 5 stars. I'm going to change it on Goodreads. I rated it 4. I rated it 4 originally, but I really think the way that she's introducing this next book is just compelling. And he's a really unique Sam Mariano hero. I loved it. I loved it so much. I'm already really enjoying Parker as well. So, and the entry point to Landon's crazy, okay, and what he actually does, and the situation that we are being set up with how they're going to be forced into proximity through this living situation. Oh my gosh. So I'm excited. I will be back when I have more thoughts. I want to pick up God of Malice by Rina next. And after that, I don't know, I do want to get back into M.M Wakeford's Novella series centered around that BDSM club. So we'll see. We'll see what I get into, but I'll see you soon. I am back to wrap up this video. I have about 6 books to tell you about. I did pick up God of Malice by Rina Kent. This is a dark psychopath romance, okay? So right off the bat, I will say the opening should tell you if this book is for you or not. I am pulling from a silver platter of dark romance. I read a lot of dubious consent, non-consent outright, and consensual non-consent. So this worked for my reading tastes. If any of those elements don't work for you, I think you should skip this one. Because there's also a trigger warning for suicidal ideation, being that Glendon, our heroine, is struggling with her mental health. She's harboring a lot of grief for losing her best friend to suicide. And that's also kind of where it leads her to the quite literal jumping off point, the place where her friend ended it all and where she's sort of toying with her own death. It's also where she meets Jillian, our hero. And this encounter is non-consensual. It's one of coercion. It's also illuminating for him, being that it's the first time he feels something, and she clocks that. I like how his psychopathy is expounded on in this book. Also, that he is a psychopath with sociopathic tendencies, being that he dons a mask to sort of placate his own family as well as the society around him. And that's made evident even in his major of being a medical student. It's the only socially acceptable way that he can open bodies up and examine them. I liked how strong Glendon was in that she's smart. Okay, she completely soothes his demons in this book, but she also showcases a healthy respect for them. I remember telling Jen, I really liked that she didn't try to Joan of Arc his demons, okay? She was smart about it. She learns very quickly on after this opening scene of assault that they're going to be forced into proximity, being that they're at the same university, and she's completely in his clutches. She keeps the assault a secret, and she could tell. I mean, this is the Next Generation book. She comes from a very affluent, ruthless, okay, family. Yet, I also did enjoy the fact that she didn't tell, because I think it's a little commentary on just the chain of events that happens for survivors, and that just seemed exhausting to her. I like that that was added in, and I completely bought her reasons for not telling her family. That could quickly, handle the situation for her. Killian is hell-bent on trying to figure out what it is about her that has elicited some sort of feeling in him. And despite his coercion, okay, he is a naughty, crazy boy. He's also quite caring. That was a development that I was not expecting, and she flourishes under that care. In fact, her own mother in this book notes that, and I definitely saw it. Also, she gets something from their play, from his possession, from his dominance of everything in her life, even with her health. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I rated it a 4.5, and so I was completely taken by surprise. I also like how his gray matter is discussed, and he's slowly falling for her and trying to figure it out. I really enjoyed that. There's also an overarching mystery when it comes to the loss of her best friend that's tied to Killian as well, and that's kind of happening in the background. And so she does sort of try to placate him as well. So I enjoyed this book. I'm actually going to continue on with this series, and I'm here for it. Next, I picked up The Beast of Blackmoor by Vane. I had no idea that this prequel novella was a thing. I'm so happy that I picked it up, because there are markers in this novella that I saw within the first 2 books in the series. We're going to be getting the 3rd in November. I cannot wait. I have been waiting for that announcement. Now, in this book, is it Kavik? He basically disrespects the goddess Vela, and she curses him in the prologue of this book. And our heroine, Milla, goes to the goddess, and she's sent on a quest. And so in this barbarian fantasy world, those that go on quests are marked with a red cloak. She is well trained. She also has a companion that is a horse. In the 2nd book in the series, there's a sentient saber-toothed tiger that I absolutely loved. So I loved seeing that here. She's a complete badass. And so she is taking down mythical creatures on her way to tame the Beast of Blackmoor, not knowing that it's a man. And Kavik could be considered beastly. He is displaced within his own town, and all of the towns are really in shambles. This is prior to the Destroyer coming. They're dealing with a demon warlord that is extorting them, and he's really sort of this town saving grace. I will say, her quest of taming the Beast of Blackmoor is a bit of a riddle. She's not sure what that means, and that does lead to some steamy situations that I thoroughly loved. I think that this novella does get the moniker, okay, of being a shorty with girth when it comes to story, because they did have these rich backstories, and I just loved being back in this world. Everything is so layered and jam-packed and dense, and I loved it so much. So I rated it 4 stars. Then I moved into Blood Moon by Jillian Graves. That is my first from her. I'm currently in Titan now because of it, because I loved the world and the strange. That's what, sorry, I'm like in front of my computer. That's like what the paranormal beings are called in this. This was a steamy rivals to lovers romance between a very curvaceous witch. She's tall. I loved her stature in this. She owns her own business. She is a freaking chemist when it comes to potions. And she also is a bartender. So she's coming home from work, just trying to like take a load off, and doesn't remember that her roommate is hosting a mixer. And so the beginning of this is quite literally a steamy one night stand, being that she hooks up with Vlad, a vampire, in the bathroom, and they learn soon after that they are rivals. Right across from her bar is his new business, and the advertising from that has been poaching her patrons. And so the argumentative foreplay ensued. I loved, okay, Vlad's abilities in this. He can read her mind after sharing blood. And so that sort of amplifies the sexual tension between them as she's trying to defend her business. There's a really sexy mirror scene of worship. I love body worship in books, especially being that she's a curvy heroine, especially being that Vlad is a vampire, and so they aren't seen in mirrors. And I just loved that. I loved that note. So, of course, I rated it 4 stars, and I jumped into Titan. That's what I'm reading now, but we're going to get into what I've read. After that, I read Filthy Lies by Serena Akeroyd. I mean, I have been waiting for that book forever. I love keyboard pianists. That is like my moniker for any character that is tech savvy, any character that can relate to machinery better than people. And Connor and Star are the best at what they do. They were literally built for one another. They are equals. And in this book, I will say that the steam crescendoed in the most gentle and beautiful way between them, being that they're both survivors of sexual trauma. And so the way that she handles that is really beautiful. And how she handles the fact that in a lot of books, I think sometimes if there isn't, quite frankly, penetration, it's treated as if it isn't sex. And so I just loved the steam in this book. And structurally, I thought it was really cool because in the beginning, to sort of catch you up to speed, she uses a mix of mediums. You're getting television broadcasts, you're getting newspaper articles, you're getting text messages, you're getting every public facing outlet that everyone in society would see that has to do with the filthy feckers to sort of recap what's happened. And you're also getting what they would see as hackers as they're sifting through all of this information. So I thought that that was really cool. At the beginning of this book, Star is missing and Connor is hell-bent on finding her. And when he does, it is the first time they've met in person, because thus far their entire relationship has been online. And so there are flashbacks to those moments as to how they have fallen for one another. And really the plot of this, the entire thing, is a spoiler. So I will just say that this is action-packed. It is filled with espionage, political intrigue. It is basically the 2 best hackers in the world on the road being hired and also hunted to save the world, and they're falling while doing it. It just, And Connor is a complete cinnamon roll, and he is mesmerized by all things Star. And what I loved about her as a heroine is that not only did she like read like a lot of alpha heroes, okay, that I read, she's lethal and she's strong, but she also lets Connor care for her. And I just love that about this book. Again, I loved the steam within this book. And it does end with a heavy drop-off cliffhanger. But I don't mind it, okay? I don't mind it when the next book comes out next week. So I rated this 4.5. And I cannot wait for the next book. I cannot wait for the next book. Next I picked up, I'm going to refer to my Airtable list, okay, because it's organized chaos over here, but a little organized. Like, I can't believe this is like working for me. Oh, how can I freaking forget Duplication by M.M Wakeford, okay? Duplication by M.M Wakeford. This is the second in her novella series of Opposites Attract. I think this is a very unique way of playing it. Being that it's the second in the series, I read Liberation that centered around a BDSM club and a group of friends that co-own it. And so this second book, I thought she was going to, pick another friend to follow. Except I get dropped into the heroine Lainey's just typical day. She's getting a Brazilian wax, and very quickly and early on, I realized we were in a different world because of the sexually liberated, free-spirited, I'm talking to the extreme customs. And I thought that that was a really great way to world build, because we're just following her and you see that we're in a futuristic world. We see that a sexual counter is very common. Nudity is the fashion. And it was wild. This world is bonkers. This is sci-fi. And in this book, Lainey basically gets the job through her brother, who works for the government, to host travelers from our world. She is in another dimension that mirrors ours, and I was gobsmacked by it, okay? And Dominic, our hero, is traveling from our world as a diplomat to what he believes just observe and take an account of all that he sees and possible hopes of a traveling program. So he's undercover. And the conversations that they have centered around monogamy and the way that they sort of work their way into balance with one another in terms of their belief systems and ideology just took me out. I love the conversation centered around this. I love the reveal. There's another reveal as to how this world works and how traveling works in between dimensions. And that was the conflict that thwarts their union. It's external, it's not internal, the longing between them, and the comical fact that we're in this highly sexual, hedonistic society, and yet they don't initially jump into steam. He withholds it because he wants it to have meaning. And there is a steamy situation between them with other characters that I thoroughly enjoyed, that sort of reveals their... I apologize for the jarring jump cut. My camera died. What's new? I'm going to be working on that. I'm not sure where I was. I got cut off in the middle of a thought. But I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed the fact that we were in this hypersexual world. And although it is instant attraction between them, they don't act on the lust right away. And the moment at which they figure out the quagmire to travel, that's when they choose to revel in the short time that they have together. And their journey back to each other, being that this is a novella, just got me. It was compelling. I highly suggest you pick it up if you want something new, fresh. And after gushing to the author, after sending her a kind of crazy voice memo, because there's a very simple tie-in to the first book that really made it feel like a series, that just kind of got me. It was just kind of like a, I was living my best bookish life, okay? It was just so fun. It's very simple. And now that I know that she's going to continue to do that within this series, I'm really excited. I, in fact, want an entire full-length series in this world. It's just a cool premise. And she really took it there with the reveal and how the world works. And I'm very intrigued. I want more. I am just fascinated by it. Anyway, so I rated that 5 stars just because of the experience, the hedonistic society, how she just dreamt that up. I had so much fun with it. It also was kind of giving me Men of North by Elin Peer vibes. I loved it so much. So I rated that novella 5 stars. I can't wait to read more. And I wrapped it up because it is, full disclosure, the morning of the 9th. Okay. I'm in the middle of Titan. I think I mentioned that earlier. I'm gonna wrap this up with In an Absent Dream. This is the 4th in the Wayward Children series. This is a dark portal fantasy novella series. And it's also the first within the series where our main character can travel back and forth. Up until this point, in the first book, I was introduced to the sort of place of refuge that's been created for teens that have traveled to other worlds and can no longer find their doors. They can no longer find their way back to where they believe they belong. And we've gone to other worlds. But again, this is the first time we've been able to travel back and forth. And Lundy has traveled to a world of logic. In this series, there are worlds of logic and there are worlds of nonsense. And this is very fitting for her because at the age of 6, in the 60s, she has learned that she does not fit in with her peers. And she's also freed by the fact that she doesn't care to. She knows that she would have to transform in order to do so. And she's happy being bookish and she's happy being a young girl of reason, and she's also sort of like emotionally neglected by her father. So when this large oak tree with a door appears, she walks through it to the goblin market. This is a very cutthroat world of riddles where you're gonna pay the piper. Okay, it is one of your word is bond, you pay your debts, and going back on that comes at a high cost. And she gets a choice to choose to either stay there or in her world, and she has until her 18th birthday to decide. And so I love the social commentary that is in this series. In this one, we're really talking about gender, being that it's the 60s, and she knows that her options are limited. She also likes this world of reason because she likes like the mental math of loopholes as well. But it's also a story of friendship and the Quagmires of that, family. This was very good. And like the ending was the cost paid in this book. So I rated this one a 4. I love this series. I love the metaphors. The idea of not feeling of this place and being able to clock just the very like real limitations, I'll say, and struggles, and feeling like the world that you're meant to be grounded in is somehow shifting and calling that out. I love this freaking series, and there are quotes within this that I'm gonna save for my quotes videos that I'm going to bring back so that these videos are not too long-winded. So I'm gonna end it there, okay? Before I go in, I'm very tempted. I'm gonna wait until I get 8 to 10 quotes and then I'll come out with that. But I would like to thank you for joining me. Please consider subscribing and sticking around. I will see you in the next one. Hopefully a favorites of 2022 video. Bye.